Alright guys, BigPoppaTMo here. We are back with another new game. This is early access version of Railroads Online, and this game is all about, you guessed it, railroads. So we have ourselves our little Betsy right here. That is our starter train. We have one rail car. We have a water tower, some boxes we can't do anything with, and we have a little bit of rail going out here. But if you notice, there's some trees in the way. So first thing we're going to have to do is figure out how to get rid of the trees. Second thing is this rail just stops. So what do you do? Well, we're going to get into that. We're going to have to do a little bit of building. And then we've got this over here. This is our rail depot. This is where you sell off a whole bunch of stuff. Now, one of the big things about this particular game, it is not super helpful in the way of a tutorial. So you really have to go in and kind of figure out a lot of this stuff all on your own. And the best thing you can do is you can go in here to the controls. You can do graphics, you can do audio and everything else like that. But go into your controls and look at what everything does. So spacebar is jump, left shift is sprint, left control is crouch, lean right, lean left. I don't know why you can lean in this game. Enter vehicle obviously is important. So F, unload freight is enter. Toggle vehicle UI is Y. That's super useful as well. Open tutorial, it says H. So let's go back and we will continue and we will hit H. This is the tutorial. It is all a wall of text. Now it does tell you pretty much what you need to do, but it's not the most useful thing in the world. So be prepared to be a little frustrated at first. It doesn't take long to get used to this game. I played quite a bit of this. I actually logged quite a few hours into this before. Now, since then, I have restarted so that I can do this content and everything else like that. And we're pretty much going to be starting from scratch. But I'm not a complete and total noob on this stuff. But I will admit freely that I had forgotten all of the controls because it's been quite a while to do that. Now, G opens up the construction menu. And to get rid of the trees, you need to go to logging. Bring your saw blade up to the tree you want to cut and cut it down. These used to cost $2 a piece to cut down, and I think they have since gotten rid of that cost. I think we can now cut down trees at our leisure. Um, Now, I've thought personally that we should be getting paid for these, but I also thought that we should have to pick them up. That if you cut them down, you should have to pick them up with some type of a rail car and go from there. That's not the case. That's not what the developers wanted to do. And, hey, power to them. Their game. But what we're going to do here is we're going to cut down a bunch of trees first. Now, I also know that it is important to have certain levels of things. One of the other things, when I was playing before, there was no snow on the ground. So the snow is kind of new to me. And I'm not exactly sure whether or not I like it. I mean, I do like the look of the snowy ground and everything, but I'm not sure how well it's going to work with the building. Now, there are a couple things about the building as well. One of the things I learned in my previous gameplay on this is you want a lot of things to be as level as you can possibly get them. So starting your ground level, all these tracks right here are perfectly level. And we're going to want to continue on with this height. So what I need to do is I need to come down here to about the end and figure out where the drop off is. It's right there. So any ground that we do, we're going to want to base off of this height right here. So we're going to open up our build menu, go into groundwork. I prefer the constant grade myself, and then you can adjust this later on, and that is going to be set to that height there. Um, Now I'm only going to do a short section right there because I also see that I was not straight in any way, shape, or form. But that's okay because I actually wanted to set my height for this section over here based off of where the track is already. So I'm going to run this like so, and then I'm going to pop off of there. So now I have the same track height here that we have over there. Now I can come back here and I can set the rail bed for this to the same height. Now, basically what I'm doing here is I'm just prepping the ground for putting rails on top of it. Now you can continue on. You'll notice that there are some commands in the top left-hand side of the screen right now. Right mouse button ends construction, left mouse button places it. You can edit the curve radius, and you can also toggle the curve radius. It's super, super convenient when you're doing long sections like this. Now I have gone around twice, so I actually need to go back and delete that. We're going to demolish the groundwork like so, and boop. See, all of a sudden it's nice and gone. Now that is fine because I actually wanted to get rid of this too because that was not straight. What I wanted to show you though is that when you come back in here and do groundwork, we're going to do a constant grade. We're going to take our height from this spot right here again, right about in the middle. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk down to about here, keeping everything about in line, and then we're going to hit left alt, and it's going to keep all of this straight. So to do long straight paths, all you have to do is set your first one, and then you hit the left alt, and it will lock it all into a straight bar. It's particularly useful for doing track. Not so much with the groundwork, but it does work for the groundwork, but doing track is very, very convenient doing that way. One thing I have noticed is there are certain things about this game that are a little tricky. I didn't like that spot, so I need to move over a little bit, grab my center from over here, grab the first one like that, hit the left alt so that it stays in a nice straight line. And you notice I didn't quite get it perfect. I'm moving away from the building, but it's okay. I'm not too worried about that. Now, as far as I know, there's no cost for the groundwork either. What I actually want to do, let's go in here, create building tools, bridge laying tools, purchase menu. So we can actually see from there. Locomotives. All right, this is the important thing here. You can buy different locomotives. It doesn't look like we have. I don't know. I don't remember what the screen is to see how much money we own or have or don't have. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rolling on a little bit of track. They have the turntables, turntable 2, crossover tracks. We need to do straight tracks here. We want to come here and we actually want to set from the beginning of this and extending out as far as we can so that we can see the best. We want to do that and then hit the left alt so that it's straight. And we're going to bring a piece all the way out here. Now we've got a nice straight extension on our track. Not too shabby. We've got to figure out where we want to go. Now the other thing is the map doesn't show what you built on it, and you can't zoom in. Now I do know that the first place we need to go is the sawmill, but I want to take my track directly north until we get to, whoops, M to get back out of that. I know we want to go directly north So we're going to basically head that way. And we're going to bring the groundwork with us so that we can see where we need to go. Now, like I said, I like this better before they put the snow in some ways because I could see the groundwork nicer. The snow just seems to make it a little difficult for me. But then again, I have vision issues. I got old eyes. But we're going to run the groundwork out here as a guide to see where we might need to cut some trees down. Now we are going to need to make a turn in that direction as well to get to the sawmill. So we're going to take our groundwork here. We're going to grab it from about the center and we're going to shoot out in the direction of the sawmill, and then we're going to bring our groundwork like so, like so, like so. Now we're going to have to adjust for a curve on the rails, but at least this way we can start to get where we need to go. Make sure we are pointing in the correct direction. Not too shabby. And the beginning of this, you need to cut quite a lot of trees down. That was the big thing, is it takes a lot of trees to get here. It's also hard to see where everything is. So laying groundwork as your control lines is definitely useful because it will help you find your way back. Because honestly, if I do this and like just turn around, even that's hard for me to see. It's very pretty and I like it, but it's hard for me to see this stuff. So when you first see, like, I've already lost track of that. So one of the other things that I always found very useful is cutting out the trees along your groundwork early on. Super useful. Now, since we don't have to pay for all of these trees, you can cut these back pretty far. And I would actually suggest that you cut them back, well back away from the groundwork, because that will help with your line of sight once you start moving your train. The vision on the train is pretty restrictive. You can only zoom out so far. You can only see so far. The trees can launch you in outer space, so be careful. But since we don't have to pay for the trees getting cut down anymore, I would recommend cutting them back at least this far back. That way you'll be able to see once it's going. And then, of course, once you've cut a bunch of them down, it's pretty easy to see which path you were taking. And with the shadows, it's a little bit easier to see that. That one I'm going to take down. It will also help you later on when you're getting ready to set your curves. Because one of the most important things about this game is not derailing your train. If your curves are too tight, you're going to derail. So you do need to set a lot of distance and width for the radius of your turns. So pretty much just go buck wild crazy on this. I don't know if I can turn off the snow. I sure wish I could, because I'm going to be honest, I'm not liking the snow as much as I liked it before they instituted the snow. I could see things a lot better with no snow. Whoop, I just got booped by a tree. Now, some of these trees like really take off. We haven't seen any spin up and take off in outer space yet, but at some point in time, I'm going to cut down a tree. It's going to sit there and just start spinning like a top and then lift off and go flying. Collision on these things is kind of wonky. See, they'll spin around like that But they spin faster, and like I said, they literally will take off and just go into outer space. I've flung trees halfway across the map before, cutting them down. Alright, now I'm over to here where these two sections are coming together. So we know we're going to need to have a curve from that section over to here. So what I want to do is I want to come back around to the edge a little bit, and I'm going to take these trees back all the way to there. That one's going to go, that's going to go, that's going to go. And then I'll just clear out what's in the middle. And we'll see how well that looks. That looks pretty decent. We missed a few. There were too many trees falling down. I didn't see that these were still up here. Let's go ahead and get rid of those. And this one's actually too close to the side, as is that one. Now, it's a little hard to tell stuff like that because I don't have tracks down yet. I haven't moved to train. I'm just going from my previous experience playing the game. What I would actually suggest with this one is, excuse me, come in here, start your first save, try everything, learn the basic tools, the basic commands, the basic construction, figure out what you think is the best layout on how to get places. Don't go too buck wild crazy, but, you know, do a decent amount and then start over. Start from scratch with what you've learned. And you will be much happier. Because the first time you do this, you're not going to know what needs to be cut down and everything else like that. Now, one of the other things, see, like, if I was just starting out the first time, I wouldn't think anything of this section right here. I'd just be like, oh, I can just take my tracks over there. That's not really what I want to do. What I really want to do here is I want to demolish this piece of groundwork here, and then I want to lay new groundwork like this, starting right here, and I want to set that out nice and straight like so. Left Alt so that it stays straight, and I want to run a new bit of groundwork straight out from here. Because I know I'm going to be using this spur quite a lot more than I'm going to be using that other spur. So I'm going to want to connect these two sections right here as well. So I'm going to stop that right there. And that's going to be nice and close. And then, of course, I need to come back and cut down even more trees. I also know that I'm going to have a turn here. I know I'm going to have a switch track nearby, because the switch is going to sit right about here and then veer off to the left, or sorry, off to the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here and I'm going to start clearing out some of these trees. Like I said, you cut down a lot of trees early on. Pretty much all of these trees right here in this open section are going to get cut down. I'm going to want to clear out an awful lot of these. Now I have to clear out at a minimum all of the ones that are on the track bed so that I can get the rails in here. So I always start on the rail bed first and move my way out further. Now bear in mind, I have not even jumped in the train yet. I haven't jumped in the train, I haven't tried to move the train, I haven't tried to do anything with the train. I'm still doing very, very basic track work. And not even track work, but track work prep at this point in time. I just know from, like I said, previous experience that I'm going to want all of these gone. Super, super useful thing to know. And like I said, if you start one save, teach yourself a little bit, go back and start a new one. And like I said, you will thank yourself later on. Because a lot of these things, it's just so much easier with a couple tips and tricks. It's also fun cutting down trees. I will give them that. They did make this an enjoyable experience. Alrighty, almost got them all. Excuse me. Alright, so now we've got that taken care of. Now we have to do something with this section of track here, or this section of rail bed here. So what we're going to do with that, we're going to grab the groundwork. We'll do constant grade again. Now you can adjust the percentage of grade on these. You'll see that I just grabbed that there and it was offset just a little bit. It was going to bother me. So I need to go a little bit further over. Grab like so. Left Alt so that it's nice and straight. And I'm going to run this one straight out. And I can actually stop that one right there. All right, so now having looked at all that, we know we need to attach to that section there. Then that's going to be a nice straight line until it gets to the curve, and then that will turn off. We know we're going to need to have a switch right about here. So we're going to go into this, go into rails, and you have two different versions of the switch right. You can have the indicator on the right-hand side or the left-hand side. I prefer this one to be on the right-hand side. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to line this up like so that it looks about the way that I want it. Now you'll notice I don't have any groundwork here. So now what I need to do is I need to do a gentle curve of groundwork from this point over here to that section over there. I also know that that tree's got to go just by looking at that real quick. Boop, 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 boop. I personally found it's better to cut more of them down than you need to, because more down is better than too few down. All right, now groundwork, back to this. We're going to grab our center section from here, and we are going to start our curve like so. So it's nice and gentle, and we're going to bring it back to the switch track. And I'm going to show you a common mistake. So the common mistake is to bring this in like so and be like, all right, cool. So there we go. That's going to be great. Now I can do that. Well, no, because this rail is not going to want to turn quite that severe. So when you go and try and put rail down, come here and you can see that it pulls up the little chains. So we're actually going to want our rail to be over here. So I'm like, okay, well, what do I do? Well, you just go back and change your groundwork. Edit your groundwork a little bit. Not that big of a deal. So now we can see that we actually want that to go off to the side a little bit. Now we're going to demolish groundwork, get rid of that piece, get rid of that piece, that piece. Don't want to get rid of too much because we want to see where we're going. But now we're going to start right about here. And all we're going to do is we're going to make this a little less severe of a curve. And we'll bring that in to match that. There we go. Now I've got groundwork that'll work for our rails. Now what I actually want to do is I want to change this to get rid of rails and get rid of that section. Now I want to put more new rail down. You want your pieces coming off of the switches to be good, solid, and as straight as long as possible. Then we're going to bring this around like so, and then doing as much of this as a solid section as we can. Do that one there, and then I'm going to hit left alt so that it straightens out. Now, once you do the left alt, it is a little tricky to get these to actually click into place sometimes, because it likes to be a specific length before it hits it. But it's better to have the automatically straight tracks than slightly curved tracks. So using the computer to straighten your tracks for you is the better option. Now you notice this is going to start to tighten up a little bit too much to the edge, so I'm going to take it off of being automatically straight and then put it right back onto it and just shoot it off to the right hand side a little bit. As long as your railroad ties are close to but not touching those pieces, your car will be close enough. Now you'll notice my groundwork is a bit off as well. So I'm going to leave that there. Hopefully, and we're going to have to test it, we're going to have to bring a car in here to make sure that it's not going to boop into it. But we'll get there eventually. So now we're going to run right back down our track. That looks pretty decent. I think I'll be happy enough with that. Now, it's up to you whether or not you get rid of all of this stuff left over, but my personal preference is to try and get rid of as much of this stuff as possible. But sometimes you run into things like that where the groundwork doesn't quite match up. And you're going to have to go back in and probably fill it in, which is not the easiest thing to do with the way that they've got this system. So hopefully I can figure out a way to get that in there. Now we've got our switch here. I want to make sure that we are not doing that. Switch is off to the left, so it's going to be this bit of rail here, which is perfect because we need to come out of here first. We're going to go ahead and attach some rail here. One of the best tricks that I've found is to stand back behind where it is so that you can adjust the angles pretty well. Get a good visual on it. See, I have it set to go straight. Now, if you ever have one where you just can't get it to put down, take off the alt, the left alt, and then come back and step to back behind. Stand in the middle of the tracks. Set it so it's nice and straight. And you can do a fairly good job of laying straight track after a little bit of practice. It just takes a little bit of practice. All right, then we're going to need to put another switch right in. Now we could come here and put it off of that, but you'll notice that one I ran too far because I actually want that to go over there. So I'm going to need to back this one up a little bit. So we'll come here, get rid of rails, get rid of that rail section there, and we know we're going to need at least one more, probably two. So we're going to set that there. Grab a switch right. Now I would suggest refraining from running this section of rail just yet until you get this one in here. And that's just because it will kind of mess up what you're trying to do. Now, one of the things you can do is you can come in here and get rid of the groundwork there and say, okay, well, I need to start here. That way we don't have another one of those burps. And we'll start right about there, and we're going to start the curve, 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 curve. Run that in like so, boom. Now this is a little bit more severe of a curve, but I know I'm not going to be using this particular sidetrack nearly as often as that other one. So that's fine that it's a little tighter of a curve. I also try and run the track as close to the center on the groundwork as I can. Sometimes it is a little bit off. I'm going a little bit faster than normal on this one just so I can show off a few things a little bit faster. How much time you take with your rails is entirely up to you. What is your acceptable risk of derailment? You'll find out real quick when you derail one of your trains. If your curves were a little too tight, a little too sharp, or if you've got too many brakes. Now I'm setting this one kind of far away because I do actually want to test out how far away we can unload now. Since last time I played, they said that they did a better job of where the unload sections are. So this section of track on this side might actually be a little too close. I'm thinking it actually is. Now, the reason I also know that I'm going to use this side more often than that side is, this side is longer. See this little extension? I can get at least one more rail car here. So if I pull the train up, I can actually unload, I believe, 6 rail cars at once to sell stuff. So that's going to be the better side to do. This one you get 4 or 5. So I will be using the other side of the tracks more often than not. Now, one of the other things that I suggest to you is when you're bringing rails through a switch track, through a switch, you're going to want to start at the switch itself and then bring the rails back the other direction. Now, I also know that I want to adjust this groundwork to match this curve a little bit better. So we're going to start here, and we're going to start this a little curvy. So it's a nice and gentle curve. All right, now we can go ahead and get rid of some of this groundwork. Boop. That one's gone. We don't need this anymore. No longer need that, or that. This one's a little sketch. And we've got a gap. That gap is not that big of a deal because all we have to do is come here, click on the center, bring it there, boop, there we go. So now we're going to go back to our switch and we will run the tracks back to the beginning. All right, starting at our switch. Now we also know we're not going to be running through here too often. The only time we're going to be coming in here is when we're trying to get new train cars or engines. So we don't have to pay as close attention to the radius. We just know that, we might need to go a little slow. Now, one of the trickiest things in this game is joining an existing section of track with an extension like what we're doing here, because it's hard to gauge whether or not we are straight on to the other track or not. And you don't want a bad curve or a bad joiner section between them. You want the rail sections to be as long as they can, but see, that one's just a little too far, so you don't want to stop it right there and then do a little teeny section. What I actually want to do is stop the rail there, and we're going to go back the other way. We're going to delete this section of rail here, and we know we want to fit 3 pieces of rail in here, so we're going to run 3 pieces of short rail, but not so short that it's going to have weird connection issues. I want this one to be about that long. And then when you get close, it'll have the little chain links to show that it's going to connect the 2 things. All right, so now we've got our rail yard set over here. This switch goes to the left, which is perfect because that's the way we want that. This switch goes to the left, which is perfect because it goes to the center. We're not that worried about the right-hand rails. Excuse me. Now we have a water tower here, and what we need to do now is we actually need to put in a spot for firewood. Now I zoomed out on the camera so that we could see that, but what you can't do is you can't build in this camera. So you have to do it from this one. You're going to go facilities, and we want to do a Firewood Depot. Ooh, I've never seen what the engine sheds are. I don't even know what these things are. That is new to Big Poppa, guys. Now, we are not going to run rails to this. This is always just going to sit here. But one of the biggest frustrations I have is with the way that this camera system works, I can't even see the whole thing. So I didn't know if this was going to hit over here or not. But that is pretty good. Now, to reload these, you will actually have to bring timber or wood or cut different parts over here, and it will respawn firewood over here for you. Because you need the firewood to fuel your vehicle. Left mouse button to pick up. We're going to pick up a couple pieces here. We're going to bring it over here into our train. And then you can right mouse click to drop them off. F is the interact with this. We need to make sure that we actually put firewood inside the burner. So we're going to grab a couple pieces. Make sure we are pointing at the burner box. Throw some in there. And that actually did not work. So apparently they have changed a bit on that. There's the burner box. Okay, so left mouse button and drag left or right, open or close. Okay. What's going on there? Didn't used to have to open that. It's also not actually opening. It used to have much less of a severe hitbox. I might have to check into that, because if we can't get firewood in our burner box, we're not going to go anywhere. All right, there we go. So I got that to open. Let's go grab some more firewood. I never had to open the door before to get it to work, but maybe that's one of the things they changed. That's actually the regulator. All right. So apparently you do need to do that. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. The fire will start to burn up, the water temperature will go up, and then we will be able to move our train shortly. We got to let that fire up a little bit. Now we are going to need to put a connector and a link. So left mouse button, add the connector, right mouse button, add the pin. Then we will pull up to this one, push it into there, and we'll be able to grab hold of that train car. Brakes are on full. Wow, that water temperature is really, really slow. A lot of it has to do with the fact that our fire temperature was really dang low. It does take a moment. All right. Now, once the water temperature gets up to 100, you start to get boiler pressure going. They did cut down on the time, the burn time. It used to burn out really fast. So the time on this is actually pretty well adjusted from what it looks like. Vision on that is kind of weird. I'm going to jump over here. I am going to grab some more firewood. Now you can only put 5 sticks in at a time, and that will fill that up. I'm going to grab 10 off of the stack and put them back in the train, because my learning experience of loading the train cost me 10 sticks of firewood. Actually, it cost me 15. Ooh. I was all sorts of messing up. Ooh, hello. Now, one thing I'll warn you guys about this particular game, it is not fast to progress. It is not fast to progress at all. You have to do a lot of build stuff. You have to get used to a lot of different things. Oh, hey, what are we doing here? No. I did not mean to move that regulator. Oh my goodness. All right, so that's another thing they did. It used to be when you got out of the train, it automatically put the brake on. Apparently that is not the case anymore. Okay, so you got to be a little bit more careful on that. Now the thing about the Betsy, she's got really good brakes and she picks up speed very, very quickly. What we're going to do here is we're going to go and try and attach to this next car in front of us. All right, make sure we put our brake all the way on so she doesn't go anywhere. Come over here, and then all we should need to do is add a pin to that one, and they should be connected. There are a lot of people that like to do this by hand. My personal preference is to do it through the sliders. Take the brake off, put the regulator on. Now the fact that this is not moving tells me that the brakes on the car are on, which is good because that's how you keep them from sliding away. Now I'm going to leave this one on about 11%, just so it gives me some resistance and will stop the train if I jump out and it doesn't have power. And we should be able to roll forward pretty well. Now, this is what we're going to do here is we're going to roll forward and get out of the way so that we can purchase more cars. Turn that one off there, hit our brakes here. All right, we are good to go. All right, now we're going to go into the G menu. You actually had to back out of that. And we want to go to flat cars. Now, this will tell you what they hold. These will hold logs and steel pipes. And that's the first thing that we're going to need. So we actually want to order several of these. And it's going to put it back over there. So that's one. That's two. Now if we purchase a third one, it's going to put it off on the tracks to the right. What I could have done is I could have just backed up and grab these two, pull forward, and do it again. But I figure might as well just put all four of them over there. So now we've got 2 cars on this side, 2 cars on that side. And what you can do here is you can come in, put the link in the pin, put the link in the pin, link in the pin. The link in the pin. And now we know that they're all in place. Now we are going to have a total of 5 cars. Now what we need to do is we need to reverse. I actually want to zoom out a little bit. Give it a little regulator. Let the brake off nice and easy. Because we don't want to smash into these cars. Slow that down a little bit. We are going to boop into the cars though. Now I'm curious as to whether or not we have the power to push through the brakes. We do. We have more than enough power to push through the brakes. Betsy is an awesome train. She really is. All right, now those 2 cars are touching. We're going to turn that all the way off, turn our brakes all the way up. Then we're going to jump out of here, and we need to put a pin in there. And we need to put a pin in there. And then we need to undo the brakes on both of these cars. Jump back into our train, reverse. Reverser is going to go back forward. And then we're just going to roll on out of here. And we have to roll all the way up past that switch. Now it's a little hard to see, but in the lower left-hand side, you'll see we're down to 33 out of 50 on the fuel. Our water level is actually doing pretty good because we haven't used a lot of steam so far. And our train is just rolling right along. Wow, those brakes work really well. All right, now we're going to come back here to the switch. And we're going to interact with this switch here. We're going to turn it to the right. What that does is it changes this tracking here. So instead of going this way, it goes this way. This one is going to the left, so it is going to go down the center, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. And now we need to back our train up and go grab those other 2 cars. And then we will have 5 cars attached to our train. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Now be careful you don't come flying in here too fast because you don't want to push that back car all the way off the end. There is a re-rail function, but it is not the best thing in the world. So when you're first starting out in particular, make sure you're taking things nice and slow. It is about railroads. It's not about, this is 1800s railroads too, so it's not all about the speed. Let that boop into that. The brakes on that are working fairly well. Should stop us before we get to the other one, so we do need to apply a little bit more power to push through. Even more power because we are pushing more weight, more cars. And we barely want to get those to touch. All right, there you go. Got those nice and ready to go. Up on out of here. Put the pin in there. Spin the brake all the way off. Put the pin in there. Spin the brake all the way off. Jump back in here. Take our reverser. Add a little power. Take the brakes off. Why are you not? There she goes. She was being a little persnickety. All of our cars are attached. Everybody's moving. We should be good to go. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to pull up past this switch and then we're going to throw this one switch again to go down that right hand side. We're not going to go down that way, but we want it to be set that way so when we come back here to buy the next 2 cars, it's ready to go. Now, one of the things I did learn about this game in particular, Anytime you're going to get out of your train, make sure you're not parked on switches. Make sure your train is completely off, because that way if you save and get out and exit the game, it doesn't reload with your train on a switch. Sometimes that had catastrophic results. All right, so that one's going back off to the left. That is perfect. Now what we need to do is we're going to let our train set right there for just a few minutes, because we need to go check our switches and make sure. Now you should be able to see them visually, which way the switches are leaning, but I have a hard time seeing. Like, I can't see that switch yet. It's right there, but I can't see which way it's leaning. All right, that is leaning to the right. The next one is leaning to the right, so that means this track right here is active. That is what we want. And then going through here, it will be active to this point. But again, we don't have any track beyond this point. So the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to lay some new track heading out here so that we don't get locked up on the switches. Now I'm going to use 2 pieces to make sure I'm roughly straight down the middle there. Then I'm going to hit my left alt and come out here and start laying tracks. Whoops. All right, so when that happens, I'll show you what this ends up doing. Sometimes when you turn around and look at stuff like that, the tracks will mess up like that. So if you accidentally double tap, make sure you come out here and remove those double taps, because they will come back and bite you in the butt. I guarantee you they'll come back and bite you in the butt. Now the other thing, now that I'm sitting here, I can see that these trees I'm going to want to get rid of because I can't see the turn. Not that it's that big of a deal, because I'm going to know that there's nothing on this side rail. But you might as well do that now. Also, try not to cut down trees right next to your train, because if the tree hits your train, it may derail you. But we've got a pretty good set of switch tracks to our rail depot and our rail yard set up. Looking pretty good. I'm digging it for a first time back in a couple weeks. I think that went pretty smoothly. Now, like I said, I'm probably gonna have to redo those tracks. We will have to test that, but we're gonna do that in another episode, because we've been at this for about an hour, guys, and that's gonna do it for the first episode of Railroads Online. Thanks again for all the love and support. You guys have been absolutely amazing. If you like what you saw, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, maybe think about subscribing to the channel and hit that notification if you want to get notified when I upload new content or when I go live. And until next time, go lay your own damn rails.